So instead of going all blood sports right out of the
Just-
gate, because
I just want to point out
I'm
this
like-
is the exact subject you killed me on last time.
yeah, I know. Well, I'm going to do this to you again. Well, I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to do it again. Right? We're gonna have a nice chill conversation for once. Right? Chill conversation. Why the fuck do you guys want to die on this hill so bad? I honestly, can you just explain it to me? Like, yeah, I mean, summarize it because we have time constraints. But why do you want to die on this hill so bad? It's such a stupid hill
Well, it
to
seems
die
that these
on.
ideas have always existed, right? There have always been men in society who have been more effeminate and wanted to wear feminine clothes. I mean, there are
There's always
examples.
been murderers too,
It's
bro.
always
There's
been a
always been
fringe thing, but-
murderers and kid diddlers too. Like, so what? So what? Just because the phenomenon
You
of
just pick something that has obvious
insanity.
proof of harm and something that's not. It's just like what you
Yeah,
would say
but-
they call the passion, but there's no harm in that, right?
But wait, there is harm. In this, actually think about this for a second. Think about it from the perspective of
there's harm to your
Hang
deontology.
on,
there's not
hang on.
harm actual to people.
relax.
Sure,
Let me make my case real quick.
Sure. Chilling out.
Okay, you can't tell me that it's so like I want to give you this a story scenario. Okay, so imagine that there's a tribe of people somewhere, right? They're like kind of primitive, kind of not. I don't know, like intermediate technology. But they're all really, really good people. They have like a really good, solid code of conduct and ethics. There's no murder allowed. There's no kid diddling allowed. And it's a really good society. And one day, one of these a mentally ill person shows up, right? Lives within the society and gets in front of a little meeting that they're having. They're having like their little quarterly annual meeting, their tribe meeting where they tell everybody, who's going to pick the fruit and this and that. And this person stands up and he goes to the front and says, listen, I'm this thing that I'm not. And if you all of you don't affirm that I'm not this thing, I'm going to kill myself. If you don't affirm that I'm this, that's what I'm going to do. And so via the good nature of all of these people, they affirm this. And it drives them crazy and they know it's not true and it makes them sick. But because they don't want this person to hurt themselves, they affirm it, they affirm it, they affirm it, they affirm it. And then this just keeps boiling and boiling and boiling. And this goes on for a couple of years. And then one day, right, they're all having the meeting and this 10-year-old kid gets up and he goes, well, then fucking do it. Then do it. Go ahead and eliminate yourself. And let's say that this person does. They actually do it. And then there's peace and life goes on. And nobody really gives a shit. And the tyrant who had been forcing them and causing all sorts of problems in their community with this is now gone. Right? How can you say that person wasn't causing harm?
Well, I'd say that the example would be a little bit more apt if you said that half the village agreed with the person, right?
Yeah, but they don't. So in this case, they don't. They don't agree with it.
How do they not? Like
In this case, engage in the hypothetical I gave you. In this case, they don't. And so one day the 10-year-old says, just go ahead and fucking do it then. And they do. And there's a collective sigh of relief. And people are like, holy shit, this is finally over. This fucking tyrant who has emotionally held us hostage for years is finally gone. How is that person not doing harm?
Emotionally held you hostage?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could have always chosen to be cruel the whole time, but
yeah. Well, listen.
I don't see how that's harm. Are they harming your emotions? Are they harming your beliefs? Like,
yeah, because through threat of self-termination, you are using a form of emotional hostage taking. For instance, if you were in a relationship, listen, I'll prove it. Hang on, I'll prove it to you. If you were in a relationship with a woman and you wanted to end it, but she said, if you end this relationship, I'm going to kill myself. How's that not emotional hostage taking?
It is, sure, but I mean,
yeah, it's the same thing. So then,
but
when we go back to this,
all trans people? Are you saying all trans people are suicidal on the point of?
This is so bad faith. So all you got to do is take it back to the example. If you agree that it's emotional hostage taking, somebody says, do this or else I'm going to hurt myself, then then you are demonstrating they're doing harm.
I don't see how this is like you spread that out to an entire group, though, right? Like, are you just making the assumption that
because that's what's happening. What's happening is this group is saying to you, affirm a thing we know isn't true. Like we all know it's not true. You can make these kind of grandiose claims, and we
that's the
can
contention, right?
argue.
Like, I've never heard a
No,
trans
it's
person
not. It's
say
not.
that
It's
male
not a
is
contention.
female,
Yeah,
right?
but the
Like,
thing is that when people say man and woman, they are alluding to you are male or female. They're not, and there's no semantic distinction you'll ever make which will convince me that when the average person says woman, they don't mean you were biologically born with a pussy and XX chromosomes and all of this. You'll never convince me otherwise because it's just not true. It's categorically not true. And even the trans don't say it's true. Even they know that when we say gender, we mean sex. And when we say woman and man, we're pointing at the sex. So if somebody were to say to you, do this, affirm this thing which you do not believe is true, and you must do this because otherwise I'll hurt myself. I just want you to tell me how that's not emotional hostage taking.
once again, do not agree that they're all threatening harm to themselves if you don't agree with them. I think they're just trying to enact their
Really? Well then what's the harm in us saying no you're not? What's the harm?
I think you guys say no, you're not all the time.
Yeah, no. So there's no harm in that.
I mean, the harm. I mean, I don't see too much harm in it as far as like just telling a person that you don't want you don't want to, like, I mean, if you want your say in your government and as far as laws, I don't see harm in actually opposing people. But if you're wanting to like actively like go after people in society because of this and try to limit their access to things,
go after them how? So like you can't use the bathroom that males use. And when we say men, we mean male. And then their argument is, but if I can't use that bathroom, I'll kill myself. That's their actual argument. Their argument reduces to our suicide rate will go down if you will tell us lies. And I need you to just explain how, one, that's not the reduction, and two, how that's not super harmful. Because to me, that seems like the ultimate harm.
I don't know. Seems like a straw man to me. I don't see them constantly threatening self-harm because if you don't do things.
Yeah, okay. Well, then why are we affirming them?
I mean, to make them feel like a part of society, make them feel
or
like they have
or else what
rights.
happens? What happens if we don't affirm them? What happens?
I mean, the same thing that's happened forever. They're marginalized. They're discriminated upon.
And then they do what? What's the primary argument of the trans wing of the LGBTQ? That we can demonstrate to you that our suicide rates go down if you affirm us. That's their primary argument. You don't dispute that, do you?
I mean, no, I don't dispute that. That's one of the arguments for sure.
That's their primary argument. How's that not emotional hostage taking, dude?
I mean, I've agreed it can be emotional hostage taking.
Yeah, it's emotional hostage taking. And so the thing is like, I think you're perpetuating a great.
I don't think that's the entire argument, though. I just don't.
Well, I think that's the primary argument, and so I don't think. I think that you are perpetuating a great evil, an actual evil, and that the perpetuation of the evil is that you're telling people to affirm things they don't believe that are true, and playing on their good nature that if they don't, you'll hurt yourself. And I think that, well, not you specifically, but you understand what I mean. And I think that that's one of the most evil things you can do to another human being is threaten to off yourself if they don't affirm something you don't believe.
I mean, I agree to that point, but I just don't see that as much in all of trans politics, right? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't.
Well, then why does all their argument reduce to self-harm?
That would be like any group, right? Any group who's heavily discriminated upon.
Well, then explain
like, you're making life
why
worse
blacks, who are the most discriminated against, at least according to intersectional politics, have the least suicidality rate.
I would assume that was because they've gone through the most for the longest, and therefore they've set up their own kind of systems to keep them going strong. Probably.
So it's not the stigma, or here's an even better argument. If we are to believe that there's as many trans now
Black
as
people
there
by
always
their nature aren't kept out of things that keep them solidified
Yeah,
in
they
the
were.
community, right?
Yes, they were.
They had like
Yes,
things like
they were.
they could come to community as church, right? They could break their own church or something like that. Whereas like
So can trans people. So can trans people.
Not in
They
certain
do the same
ones, right?
shit. What certain ones?
Earlier.
Why can't trans people start a church?
Oh, start a church. Sure, they could start a church. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like all these what you would consider coping mechanisms are all at their disposal. It's literally emotional hostage taking. And not only that, imagine.
Well, it's also an absolute extreme minority.
Well, hang on.
Which is if
you were to move back
of any other large minority.
If you were to move back 100 years and you were to assume that there's as many trans, people under the age of 18 who are teenagers or this type of things are now per capita, because this is something which is not propagandized but truly ingrained in people, then how come teenagers were offing themselves less? Significantly less. It makes no sense. That would be like saying, well, then by keeping you in the closet, we protect you the best.
I mean, are we talking about per capita, like less?
Yeah, per capita. Yeah, it's not even close. Not even close.
I mean,
and yet I would argue that there was more stigma.
Like
I would just argue that there was
in general higher now outside of just those minorities.
No, it depends on the demographic you're talking about, but no, maybe slightly, depending on which antipsychotic drug they're put on. But ultimately, if you break these groups down, the trans had more stigma then than they have now. By significant margins, they had more stigma. So did LGBTQ, and yet they killed themselves less.
I mean, they're also much more visible now, right?
Yeah, so then your argument would be if you stay in the fucking closet, you kill yourself less. Wouldn't that be a reduction in harm?
Trade-offs, right?
Yeah, so the trade-off is if we keep you in the closet, you won't kill yourself. That's really fucking weird. That's a weird argument, bro. Right?
I mean, yeah, it is strange.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It's not the thing that I like to argue. So
doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
I don't agree with that kind of emotional argument and that kind of thing.
Well, it's not an emotional argument. It's not an emotional.
If people want to pursue their happiness in certain kind of ways, like that I don't feel are harming other people, and I don't believe in trying to impose things on other people in that sense.
But
I don't believe in laws that do pronouns or anything like that. So,
but if that demonstrated to you that stigma saved lives, shouldn't we do stigma?
Wait, so you're actively saying that we should discriminate because
I'm saying if I gave you a demonstration, which I just did, that stigma seems to save lives in this instance, shouldn't we do that?
I would say that the emphasis would be on the seems. I would need to see the other factors as to why.
But let us assume for a second it did. In fact, I'll give you an olive branch. Let's assume I'm totally wrong, right? But for the sake of argument, I was correct. Would you then advocate for stigma if it saved lives?
If it saved people's lives from offing themselves,
yeah.
I don't know. I think
you don't know.
Need to be able to make their own choices.
You don't know. You don't know if you would promote stigma. If by promoting the stigma, it meant that people actually wouldn't kill themselves. You don't know the answer to that?
I mean, it's a matter of choice, though, right? Like, you're not.
Yeah, I'm not disputing it's a matter of choice. What I'm saying is that if we introduce into the choice that you make a stigma, so you never make the choice, and because you never make this choice, you're never in a position where you kill yourself. Shouldn't we do that?
I think sometimes to live free, you have to allow in possibilities of negativity and harm in that kind of way, I guess.
Well, well, okay. What possibility, realistic possibility, could you ever state that would lead to people killing themselves due to massive depression that you would ever promote?
I'd say people make choices all the time that I don't agree with, but it's their choice to make, right?
Yeah, but which ones would you promote?
Which choice specifically as to what? I'm sorry, I got lost.
Yeah, what choices would you ever promote that led to larger amounts of suicidality amongst groups?
I mean, it's not about promoting something because it causes that. I don't even.
Then
Like I
name
said, I don't
something.
even
Then name
completely
something.
believe
So
that just them being out of the closet or in
yeah, whether you
any
believe
kind of
that or
ways is
not,
the
that has no
reason that
bearing on the
it's
question. It has no bearing on the question. What
right. But
behavior
it
would
seems
you
like you just
ever
like
promote if
finagled the
it led to
statistic to it.
additional
Like,
suicidality? What behavior would you ever promote? What? Like if I said drugs lead to higher suicidality rates, you wouldn't promote drugs. If I said this pill leads to higher suicidality rates, you wouldn't promote that pill. Yeah, like you wouldn't do any of that. You would say, no, this is bad. So how come on this one issue, you're just fucking adamant? You're not only adamant to promote it, even though stigma may save lives, but even if it didn't, ultimately, we're still back to the emotional hostage taking. So it's like there's so much against you here. And I don't know why you're so adamant about dying on this hill.